Yes, very great idea.
He's gone from the small comedy clubs of Chicago to become one of the highest grossing comedians in the country today and the star of his own sitcom on Fox, The Bernie Mac Show. He is a very funny guy, Mr. Bernie Mac. Yeah, Bernie. Look at Bernie. Yeah, baby. Very sharp, my man.
How are you, Bernie?
Yes, Bernie. Oh, look at this. This
Bernie,
is
you
it.
make me laugh.
Thank you, sweetheart.
You are
look
so funny.
great.
Thank you.
Bernie on top of the world right now. That Bernie Mac Show flying high.
I'm doing okay.
Yeah, not bad for a guy that came out of Chicago, huh?
Yeah, I'm doing okay.
And still lives in Chicago.
Yes, sir.
Good for
Born
you.
and raised, and it does my heart well. It keeps me focused.
That's right. Now, how many kids in your family when you were growing up?
It was 8, but 11 in one home.
11 in one home.
Right.
And what was your standing in there? Were you?
I was like number 4, 3 from the bottom.
Oh, 3 from the bottom.
Right.
Kind of lost in the middle of the pack there, right?
No respect.
Yeah. But did you have to fight for whatever you got there with the humor that you
I always had to
developed?
fight for it because my parents were so strong and they were disciplinarians like the old school parents were.
Right.
You know, and they didn't, my mother didn't like what they call shuffling and jiving.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Right.
I was a clown and my mother didn't like that. She was
Right.
an educator. She wanted you to get your education and read a paragraph and tell me what you read. And I was a clown. I would make fun of what I read and all that kind of stuff. And we had to eat dinner every day at 5 o'clock. It was family oriented, and those that weren't there was because they had to work. And by me being the clown that I was, we only had a little portions of everything. And my mother and my grandmother would wrap whoever wasn't there their food up, and when they came home, they opened their plate and I took a bite off their meatloaf and
Helped yourself.
you know, drink their soda and they add water to it, you know what I mean?
You had to be on time on that, House. So, Bernie, when did you know that you wanted to go into the business and do the funny stuff on stage?
You know what, Regis? I knew it at a young age, but I really was convinced when I did a play in school, in grade school. I played a tree.
You played a tree.
I was a tree, and a tree of life.
The Tree of Life.
The tree of life. And
Yes.
everybody, all the kids would come and they would get an apple and they had to take a bite and then they would tell what they aspired to be. And I was this talking tree. You know, and by being this talking tree, I went against the script. You know, I started moving the tree. You know, I was a tree that was supposed to stood still.
Yeah.
And then when they came to try to pick an apple, I would move.
You couldn't stop even then.
So when I first heard all of that, I said, I can do this.
Sure.
You know, I was in character. I can do this.
It was the laughter of the audience that inspired you to pursue it full
the laughter,
time.
you know, Kelly, the laughter is so, that's the biggest payday in the world for me.
Yeah.
It's not dollars and cents, Regis. It's the joy when you see people smile.
Oh, that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
It's never been the money. Never. It's always the applause. It feeds my soul. We're going to come back with Bernie in just a moment. Bernie Mac here, one of the kings of comedy. Who were some of your comedic idols as you were growing up?
Regis, I had so many. I had, and I took a page out of all of their notebooks. I had Jackie Gleason, Richard Pryor, Moms Mabley, Jack Benny, Red Skelton, Don Rickles, Moms Mabley, that's it, Moms?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, all of them, Carol Burnett, Lucille Ball.
You studied from all of them?
I studied from all of them.
Well, you know, you're picking on names here that a lot of the younger comedians probably don't even know.
They have no idea because if you want to be a doctor, you got to be a student of the game.
Absolutely.
And you know, my mother used to always tell me, get back from the television. I would scoot back, then go back forward.
Right.
And, you know, and I used to always watch and see how Jack Benny showed me how
What did you learn from Jack Benny?
I learned from Jack Benny about the gestures, not saying a word.
The timing.
And telling a story just with your face.
Oh, and you know, on your show it shows because one deadpan from you and I'm on the floor crying.
Right, that's
I really
Jack
am.
Benny.
It's so brilliant.
What about Rickles?
Don Rickles, I learned how to have courage and not be afraid to be your own person and tell the truth, but in a joke fashion. Don Rickles was so strong, he just hit you. It was a lady, I went to see him in Vegas, and it was a blue-haired lady. She had blue hair, and he was talking. He said, "You still breathing?" And And I said, no, he didn't. I said, no, he didn't. But I was shocked.
Yeah.
But I said, that was guts. But it was funny.
Oh, it's funny stuff.
You know, and I learned from Red Skelton how to get into character, how he did so many characters, and he was not afraid to get lost in those characters.
Sure.
And then how at the end, I saw how sincere he was.
Yep.
He said, and may God bless. You know, and that just, my eyes just get watered. I said, man, this guy's good, you know?
You know who I knew? Mama's Mabley.
Oh, and she was very dedicated to the care. When she took her teeth off, put the little hairnet on, and they beat her up, they called all kind of names, and she never really got a just due, but she was so secure with herself.
But when you think of she wasn't a young chicken either, you know.
Right.
An older woman going into that rough business and getting her share of laughs. It was really an incredible story.
You couldn't follow Mom's Mabley.
That's right. All right, let's take a look at Bernie in action now, okay? Now, as I understand the whole setup here, you're raising these 3 kids.
That's correct.
You're doing somebody a favor, and you and your wife are a little tired.
That's correct.
Yeah. Now, you get a call for some tickets. Some of his buddies want him to go to a pro basketball game at the Clippers out in L.A.
Right.
And you said, no, I better not, but now you're thinking about it. Now you want to go. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's what happens. Bernie Mac Show, big hit on Fox Wednesday nights at 9 o'clock. So happy for you, Bernie.
Thank you, sir.
The best to you.
Thanks for the laughs, Bernie. Thank you for the laughs.
Bernie Mac. Andy Rutter coming up next. We'll be back.